Hello again. It's Dr. Matey. How you doing? You know, I was up at the Seneca Indian Reservation up in Salamanca, New York, uh, pretty recently, and I got a chance to go to the Seneca Museum. It details all the history of the Seneca Nation. They were part of the First Nations, and they had a tribe living uh, on the northern shores of Ohio, Pennsylvania, and New York called the Erie Indians. But they went to war against the Mohawks. The war lasted 5 years. For the first year and a half or 2 years, they did well fighting the Mohawks, but the Mohawks were fierce warriors and gathered their allies and decimated the Erie Indians. What was left of the Eries ended up being absorbed into the Seneca Nation. But I did get to the museum up there, and there is a unique piece of history, one of the most unique pieces of American history they have on display up there, is a peace pipe, which is a tomahawk with a hickory handle. And on top of the tomahawk is a bull. And a hole is drilled through the hickory handle so they can smoke a peace pipe. Now, George Washington, he gifted this tomahawk slash peace pipe to Seneca Chief Corn Planter as he came to meet with him to sign a treaty deeding him all this land to the Seneca Nation. And it was such a brilliant peace deal that, Washington, the great general, leader, and diplomat, and president of the United States, would do this to ensure that the Indians were well taken care of and were given land that they can call their own. They deeded it over to the Senecas. This peace pipe, it's a metal tomahawk with a bowl on top so they could smoke a peace pipe. I've never seen anything like that before in my life. And I thought, wow, what a piece of American history. George Washington had this specially made to give to Chief Corn Planter. Well, when I was up there, I went up to the couple of shops up there. And the Seneca Nations already are selling marijuana up at their different pot shops up there. Most of them are owned by the Seneca Nation or licensed by the Seneca Nation. And, I went in one, and they were selling ounces for as low as $30. I don't know how good a $30 an ounce bag of pot would be. But, they had ounces as high as $250 too, I guess, for the good stuff. And then I went next door to grab a soda, and there was a cigarette shop. And they're selling cigarettes for $27.50 a carton. Now, I'm from Pennsylvania here in Erie, and cartons are nearly $100. $100 a carton. If they're on sale, you can get them for 75 or 80. But if you had a brain, you'd be going up to the Indian Reservation in New York and making your purchases. They haven't legalized pot here in Pennsylvania, only the medical marijuana, which is a shame. And the hard right Republicans are against it because it's still against federal law. And, they have to reclassify it to a lower type drug for, they have it in the same category as heroin and methamphetamine and, these hardcore drugs. But, there are a lot of people who use it to relax and cure their anxiety and depression. And some people just use it for fun. And I had a friend of mine, he was a pot addict. He smoked his brains out. He'd go through an ounce a week. And it was good stuff, too, back in the early 80s. You get Panama Red. You get Acapulco Gold, Maui Wowie. It was all the good stuff, He had connections, and he was always getting the good stuff. But he smoked his brains out. He ended up not working for a while, and that hurt him because he didn't have any money to buy anything. But anyway, he worked his way through it. He ended up getting a job at a printer. And made his career as a printer. Did 45 years working in a print shop. So I'm going to hand it to the guy. He's a hardworking guy. Now listen, I talked to Jill Biden. Jill, Joe's wife. And she said, Dr. Mady, you know, Joe, he's the greatest president in the history of America. Almost as great as George Washington. I said, really, Jill? The greatest? And she said, yes, we're having a special presidential suite built over at Walter Reed Hospital. So when he gets reelected, he has a place to go to if he's not feeling well. We just put him in the office over at Walter Reed. And he can finish his presidency at the Alzheimer's clinic there. And we'll take care of him and feed him applesauce and soup and, ice cream. And he'd be so happy having ice cream cones. And, look at everything he's accomplished. She was telling me, I go, what has he accomplished, Dr. Jill? Well, he's got the highest interest rate since the 1980s. He has the highest inflation rate since the 1980s. He has spent hundreds of billions of taxpayer dollars on endless wars. He gives free American money, taxpayer money, to places like Ukraine. He's even given Iran $40 billion. Isn't that so generous of him? He is such a great guy. He takes care of his friends. Well, Joe, what about the millions of dollars he extorted out of China and Russia and the oligarchs in Ukraine? What are you talking about? She said to me. He did not. Now, you have to prove that if you're going to make such an accusation. Well, Joe, how did he get to hold the deeds to all these $1 million properties in Delaware when, he doesn't make jack? As president, what's he make, 400 grand a year? After taxes, he gets maybe 215. Oh, yeah, I guess there's a lot of deductibles. But there's no way he could afford to make a mortgage payment on these properties, let alone own them outright. Unless he got a little help from his friends, don't you think? Nudge, nudge, Jill. Well, I don't know about his finances. All I know, he's a good provider. And we love Joe. And he's the greatest president ever since George Washington. I said, okay, Joe. Now listen, how come Joe refuses to go on interview shows or hold a debate or take hardball questions from the press? Well, we have to protect Joe, we don't want him to slip up and fall. And that's why he carries the note cards. And, if it gets a little too difficult for him, we send somebody in to pull him away from the microphone, or we even shut off the microphone if he goes off script too much. So, okay, I understand that, Joe. Now, listen, when he gets reelected, Joe, what's the first thing you're going to do? Oh, we're going to have inauguration parties. We're going to party like it's 1999. We're going to party till dawn. I go, how are you going to do that when he can hardly stay awake during the day? And you're going to stay up all night and party? Well, we have special military doctors and they have special military medicine that they give to him to make him lucid and active for a couple hours. And when that wears off, we just give him another injection. And it keeps him going. That's why he appears so fit and strong and manly. Joe, he's such a manly man. Oh, okay. I understand. So after the inauguration parties, what's he going to do? Sleep for a week? Hmm. Well, that was the end of my conversation with Jill Biden. But she thinks he's the greatest president since George Washington, and he's accomplished so much. In my opinion, the guy has done more damage to America in his 3 short years than anybody before anyone. Now they, laugh at Trump. The first thing that comes out of a Democrat's mouth is, he's a Nazi. He's evil. And they're all talking up, Democrats are all talking up a democracy. Oh, January 6th. Oh, you mean the frat party Trump had at the Capitol on January 6th? Yeah, it was not an armed insurrection, my friends. They're just Americans going to the Capitol. And there were some bad actors, and they got a hold of them, and they prosecuted the hell out of them, and gave them long sentences. Unfairly in a lot of cases. These federal judges down in Washington, D.C. showed very little mercy, and they're still picking up protesters that they're recently identified and located and arresting them to this day. And the way they do it is they kick down their door at 5 in the morning, said, FBI, come on with your hands up. So these guys are in their homes with their wife and their children. And you got the stormtroopers kicking down their door, so they can extradite them to the Washington gulag. The conditions in that Washington, D.C. jail are terrible. And they, cockroach infested, bedbug infested, flea infested. The food slop. And no heat, no air conditioning. I mean, it's just it's a prison, from the medieval ages. And, it's just unfortunate that some of these people were even there, because just being there would get you arrested, even if you didn't go in the building. They had one guy they arrested, he wasn't even in Washington, D.C. So anyway, they make a big deal about democracy. And they were so proud of transferring and transitioning power from one administration to the other. So Trumpy came along. So they can't brag about it anymore. Look what the Democrats have done with all these so-called democracies. They had a coup d'etat in Ukraine and overthrow their duly elected government and installed a puppet regime. And now we're at war with Russia via Ukraine as our proxies. And the Ukrainians have lost over 500,000 men. Millions of Ukrainians have left the country and don't ever want to come back. It's just too dangerous. And then, there's propaganda that Ukraine can defeat Russia. Right. And America's in no position to be going to war with anybody right now. In World War II, we had 50 million men and women under arms. Our standing forces here in 2023 are 12 million. That's it. And half of those people are support personnel. So you got about 6 million people who are actually doing the fighting. Now, there's no way we could tangle with one of these giant powers, Russia, Turkey, China. Well, China's a kind of a joke. Their Navy is, and their ships are so crappily built, they're always back in port for repairs. And, their aircraft carriers are a joke. They've got cracks in the landing decks and, cracks in the hulls. I mean, where'd they learn shipbuilding from? I don't know, man. Maybe it was the narcos. But the narco subs transport their cocaine from South America to Texas and Florida, California, they have these little submarines loaded with cocaine. But look at all the wars the Democrats have started. How many democracies they've overthrown. Democracy is so sacred to them. Why are we interfering with other people's governments? Avoid foreign entanglements. Now, the greatest words that Ronald Reagan ever said is, "I'm here from the government, and I'm here to help you." It still resonates in my ears today. Now, listen, excuse me. The 2024 Dream Ticket is going to be Donald Trump and Tucker Carlson, because Tucker Carlson will make a great president. After Trump finishes his second term, Carlson comes in and takes over for 8 years, and he'll steer the country in the right direction because he's a no BS straight shooter who loves America. There's other anti-American, socialist, communist, Marxist, cultural Marxist who've infiltrated the Democrat Party and want to destroy America. So I'm hoping that's the way it works. I even like Kennedy a little bit. I like to see Kennedy get in there and shake things up. Now, I don't understand why Joe Biden, the greatest president since George Washington, has not provided Robert F. Kennedy Jr. Secret Service protection. It's wrong. All right, little babies, I just want to make a little joke about Joe Biden. And Joe Biden being the greatest president that America's ever had since George Washington. All right, little babies, I love you. Hey, hit the like button, subscribe, and leave a comment. Promise me, okay? All right, I love you, little babies. Bye-bye.